Part 49. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 481. Li Ji and Maria, the Lost Warrior Master and Apprentice, didn't get a chance to play in the final battle. Maybe they should be compensated. Google search reading. What's more, the air signs like to run around. Of course, there is another reason, that is, their big dog helicopter is the best reconnaissance unit in Ruger's hands. Having them with him is a lot of benefits. However, seeing that the four wind signs were allowed to go out as a team, the other team also had some ideas. That is Irina and her two naughty barbarian apprentices. Well, plus the two naughty former teammates, who are now even naughtier than the naughty kids, the little lowly Gialia. Gialia wants to go out, and Ruger doesn't want to and won't stop her. After all, she is essentially a foreign aid sent by the ancient Nephilim Lasma to help save the world. Once he took over the rogue camp area, it was equivalent to taking this shelter world directly into his pocket, and he didn't need others to rescue him. Then, he should at least say hello to the kind helpers. Ruger couldn't detain a child who was sent to help out of kindness. Let her go and let her contact her father. If possible, everyone is working for the Eye of Anu, the World Stone, so it would be nice to meet and chat and exchange information. But Ruger himself didn't want to add another Gialia to his car. The 2 or 3 people, Irina, Seongdakshin, and Seongdakshin, who were instigated by her and wanted to go out and play, could just be sent to guard the little lowly. So, the original 2-person adventure team became a huge team of 3 + 4 + 4. Sarah, who was left in Ruger City to handle government affairs, pouted her mouth. Because other teams were 4 people, only Ruger's core team was 1 person less, only 3 people. Needless to say, the one missing was her, the Lord Mayor. If the Lord Mayor was unhappy, who dared to tell others easily? Until Ruger personally went to persuade them and promised to go back to the city every night, the city lord was satisfied and let everyone leave. Everyone was impressed and said that Lord Ruger was good at sleeping. The word sleep was not written wrong. The huge team of 11 people was divided into 3 teams, which happened to be divided into 3 sets of transportation. Ruger did not drive Leopard 2 out, nor did he use the modified World War II tanks such as Leopard or Horse Bear. Because the main purpose of going out this time was to find out the situation, not to fight. Even if there was a battle, the entire rogue city was in Ruger's logistics space anyway, and all kinds of tanks could be taken out of it at that time. So the vehicle Ruger chose for the 3 of them was mainly off-road passing ability, supplemented by reconnaissance ability. After thinking about it, he finally chose an African Fox armored reconnaissance vehicle. Amphibious components were also installed on it. I dare not say that it can cross the sea, but it is not a problem to cross a normal river. These 2 small cars are also full of memories of everyone. Well, mainly Anya's memories. Because it was when she was driving Ruger in this car that she first heard some secrets about the world and the nature of Ruger and Sarah. What about the reincarnation of the Queen of Pain, what about the transformation of the demon god, etc. Sitting in the driver's seat again, feeling the special breath of Tia who had really become a demon god behind her, Anya was filled with mixed feelings. The more she thought about it, the more she felt sorry for herself. Why are her 2 stepmothers, step-grandmothers, each one more terrible than the other? Ruger actually felt that she was a little anxious about her low strength, and once asked her indirectly if she wanted to be a Tigerman warrior. With Ruger's current analysis of the Radom tree, it is not a problem to ensure that 1 more Tigerman warrior is made every month. In the final battle, whether it was Shepard or Irina Isandra, they all proved the ability of Tigerman warriors when facing enemies at the level of demon kings and demon gods. This is the most powerful way that Ruger has in his hands to greatly enhance people's strength in a short period of time. However, Anya refused. Because this method is not omnipotent, it only adds once. The stronger the ability of the person when adding, the stronger the effect of the addition. Of course, Sarah, who was directly blessed by the new Pope position, is another matter. What's more, she has become a god, and it is enough for her to bless herself. As for Tia, instead of transforming into Iron Man, it is better to transform directly into Tia Polo Red Dragon Man. Because of this characteristic, Anya hesitated a little and still rejected Ruger's proposal. In her words, "My strength is still too poor. Let's talk about it when I can defeat Tia with bare hands." Well, defeating Tia with bare hands. Ruger believes that children are very ambitious and should be encouraged. Even if they are daydreaming, they should be encouraged. So in the end, Anya can only continue to be her driver. After leaving the world fragments of the shelter, there is no need to worry about magic radiation when using electronic equipment. However, Ruger's African Fox armored reconnaissance vehicle is still treated with anti-magic radiation. That is to say, all electronic chips are placed in the same radiation-proof quick-release protective box. Because, if magic radiation was an unfavorable environment that he needed to overcome before, now magic radiation is his special attack method that puts possible enemies in an unfavorable environment. That's right, at the critical moment, magic radiation is spread outward to interfere with the enemy's radio signals and destroy their electronic chips. The source of dispersion is also ready, which is Ruger's giant Andariel. Because of this killer, all vehicles have been treated with magic radiation protection. The reconnaissance equipment on the African Fox reconnaissance vehicle is still mainly optical. In comparison, the vehicles used by Irina's group with 3 dolls are much simpler. It's just 2 Inuk armored patrol vehicles. The reason why they were given 2 was to allow the 4 of them to have enough driving training time. They don't need a driver's license, don't need to pass the second subject, and don't need to reverse into the garage, side parking, etc. As long as they practice starting and stopping on the slope, and S-shaped curves, it will be enough for them to keep up with the team. In addition, the 4 people have good learning abilities, so Ruger generously gave them 2 Inuks to do whatever they want. Anyway, even if these 2 cars are broken by them, Ruger doesn't feel bad. Besides, as long as they are not stuck in the mud, the broken car can be repaired after being recovered by Ruger. Even if it falls into a river or even the sea, it doesn't matter. Ruger now has a salvage ship. Just like the 3 Earth sign Iron Man have the centipede-like land cruiser tank, and the air sign has the big dog helicopter, the other 2 groups of Iron Man also have their own ultimate war machines. Although they were late in the final battle and were not used, it does not mean that they are not useful. The fire sign's tank is a super heavy tank with many turrets. Several turrets are controlled by 3 Iron Man according to different weapons. That tank is called Rommel Chimera. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 482. Rommel, meaning that the prototypes of this chariot are all the tanks that Rommel, the general of the Zhou family in World War II, loved. Chimera, a 3-headed fusion monster that is said to be a mixture of lion, sheep, and snake. Together, it just explains what this chariot looks like. Coincidentally, the 3 fire signs are Leo, Aries, and Sagittarius. Sagittarius, the centaur, is wrong to cosplay as a snake, and this combination is exactly the same as the original Chimera. With wind, fire, and earth, the last water sign war machine is a U-shaped shark submarine. It is a mechanized biochemical transformation of the Zhou U-shaped submarine and the shark. This thing is Ruger's salvage ship. Its power is very strong and its underwater speed is extremely fast. It is a giant in the river on the south side of the original Rogue Town. The 4 ultimate war machines of the 4 elephants Iron Man happen to be the big dog helicopter flying in the sky, the Rommel Chimera running underground, the centipede land cruiser drilling in the soil, and the shark U-type submarine swimming in the water. It has everything from land, sea, air, and land. It only needs an aerospace plane to go anywhere in the planetary circle. Well, in fact, it can't go everywhere. The deep sea where the water pressure is higher than the shark submarine can bear can't go. However, if it is strengthened by Ruger's biochemical technology, the upper limit of the shark submarine's pressure-bearing capacity seems to be yet to be determined. The snowy mountain plateau on the ground, the Rommel Chimera, which is too heavy, seems to be unable to go up. But the big dog helicopter has great potential. It's just that the Iron Man leaders under Sarah were a little unhappy that they didn't show up in the final battle with the leader. Some of them are holding back and want to show off. Hearing that Ruger was going to go out to explore and that he would hold a meeting to mobilize them to help before leaving, the Iron Mans were eager to try, and they all felt that their chance to show off was coming. As a result, except for the 4 unknown wind signs who were taken out, the rest seemed to be treated as boatmen, trackers, and cargo drivers. That feeling was really a huge difference. The 2 water signs were fine. Cancer and Pisces were relatively lazy and had no fighting spirit. The most fighting Scorpio, well, had already gone out. But the remaining 5 earth and fire signs were uncomfortable. The earth sign Taurus was a bullish person. He obviously obeyed Sarah's orders, but because of his bad attitude, Sarah always thought he was disobedient. If Ruger didn't have a system, he could help Sarah list her subordinates. The list also included everyone's obedience. Prove to Taurus that his obedience is actually in the first echelon among everyone, and help him clarify. That big bull might really die unjustly. But there happened to be a traitor Capricorn among the earth signs, which made Taurus and Virgo a little uneasy, wondering if Sarah would distrust them. Until Sarah asked Ruger to help create another Capricorn, to complete the 12 constellations, and arranged various land infrastructure work for the 3 earth signs. In this way, they settled down. As for the new Capricorn, it was none other than, well, Minerva. Regarding this person, I have to say that Sarah chose very wisely. After all, the technology that can make new Iron Man is a special ability that Ruger only has 1 chance a month. If you choose someone that Sarah likes but Ruger is not familiar with, it will make Ruger a little uncomfortable. As for Minerva, first, her loyalty is absolutely guaranteed. She is familiar with Ruger, Sarah, and Tia. The most important point is that she is still Ruger's most frequently chosen general to guard the house. Well, another point is that she has always had some special feelings for Ruger. In this case, don't blame Sarah, the second in command, for not talking about sisterly love. After Minerva was given the position of the new Capricorn, even though she didn't have the procedure of the radon bug entering her brain, she was still nominally under Sarah's control. Sarah asked her to stay in the city to take charge of the infrastructure work and help with the construction, so she didn't have the nerve to ask to go on a trip with Ruger. You know, if she really wanted to go out, she would still agree to it if she talked to Ruger a little. After all, she is the aunt of the 2 barbarians, Seongda and Seong-er. If you want to say who is the most eager to fight in the Iron Man, it must be the 3 fire signs. However, they have already wiped out the Paladin cult in Rogue Town before, which is considered to be a relapse. In addition, their ultimate war machine is a tank, which is the tank that Ruger lacks the most, so they don't actually need to play the role of sedan bearers porters. So when Sarah assigned them the task of cleaning up the monster nest in a remote corner of the area, they did not say anything and happily accepted the order. In the end, only the 4 people of Fengxiang were left. Coincidentally, they were also the last group of the 3 groups going out. The big dog helicopter of the 4 people of Fengxiang must go out with them. However, it is not enough to have only the big dog helicopter that has been biochemically modified based on the Mi-24P. Even in the most magical world, the most fundamental law, the conservation of energy, still needs to be followed. If there is a world that obviously does not abide by the conservation of energy, it probably means that the world is virtual. For example, the world where Ruger's consciousness body entered the sea of consciousness of Tia. There can be many things with unknown energy sources that can be transformed at will. After all, helicopters rely on rotational kinetic energy to gain lift, and as long as they fly, they consume energy. The original fuel consumption of the Mi-24P was considerable because it was heavy enough. After being transformed into a big dog helicopter, part of the energy required by the engine can be provided by the energy obtained by the big dog life form itself from digesting and absorbing food. But that can only be regarded as a drop in the bucket. Then, the genius Isandra created the ability to cast spells with magic gems without magic power. Then, she used this technology on the big dog helicopter. The reason why the big dog helicopter exists is to solve the problem of how to preserve the electronic equipment necessary for the helicopter in the magic radiation environment. So the life form of the big dog helicopter itself can also absorb the discrete magic radiation in the air. In the end, the power source of this guy became, 1. The magic in the environment, 2. The magic gems fed by the 4 people, 3. The food fed such as the corpses of monsters, 4. Aviation kerosene. And their proportions are also arranged in this order from high to low. So, now comes the problem. There is no magic in the outside world, which directly cuts off the most important energy source of the big dog helicopter. This makes its energy consumption soar. For this reason, Ruger's suggestion to the 4 people is to reduce its flight time and control its energy consumption. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 483. Even if the 4 people felt that this was not windy enough and not free, they had to obey under the threat of having fuel and other things deducted from their personal wages. Google search reading. Yes, now the Iron Man has the concept of salary. Because there will be no more monsters in Rogue City, but everyone still needs to exercise, practice, and upgrade, which also requires magic stones. So, Sarah waved her hand and simply distributed magic stones as monthly wages. The specific regulations are still being improved. In the future, we need to take into account the balance of income and expenditure and the upgrade needs of everyone, which is not something that can be perfected overnight. For now, because the 4 wind signs have to follow Ruger to scout the situation, their wages are not low, 1 flawless gem per month. This is indeed not a small amount, at least 3 to 5 times that of the original Rogue team leaders. But, after testing, the big dog helicopter needs to consume 1 flawless gem every day it flies in the sky. The wages of 4 people are only enough for him to fly for 4 days at will. Therefore, the big dog could only stay in the magic-filled Rogue City most of the time, enjoying the feeling of flying freely. Therefore, the 4 wind sign Iron Man could only get some ground vehicles with low fuel consumption from Ruger. After choosing, Isandra and Li Min also chose an Inuk armored patrol car. They didn't have any idea about land vehicles, as long as they were enough. However, Li Ji and Maria were both Lost One combat professionals, warriors. Most of their combat methods were related to vehicles. However, because they were Lost One combat professionals, the combat environment they were used to was actually the Lost One, that is, the environment of the road traffic network in the original era of Ruger. If they had to describe it simply, they preferred to use wheeled vehicles for combat rather than tracked ones. In the end, both of them chose a certain type of off-road motorcycle. The kind equipped with small caliber machine guns and grenade launchers. Finally, the convoy of 4 cars and 2 motorcycles was finally determined, and everyone began the exploration journey of the lost planet. After leaving Rogue City, the first thing everyone discovered was that the foggy forest that originally isolated the Rogue camp area from the outside lost planet had disappeared. Well, in fact, only Tia and Gialia knew what the foggy forest looked like. Both second generations have fathers to rely on. Tia inherited some memories from Mr. Maximum. These memories were made into dream-like memory fragments and stored in the consciousness of Old Noisy. Now that Tia and Old Noisy have become one, they naturally accepted these memory fragments. As for Gialia, since she was sent by her father to help, she still learned some basic information here from her father. Through these two, Ruger was able to confirm that the foggy forest disappeared, and it was not just because the forest was received into the space by himself and the fog outside dissipated by itself. In Gialia's words, this is the function of the space-time hub singularity gem. When the world is unfolded, there is a boundary protection. When it is closed, the protection disappears. Don't you know it? Why are you pretending to be stupid? It can be seen that Gialia is very unhappy with Ruger's behavior of taking the area of the rogue camp for himself. In her mind, this should have been her spoils of war. Even if she can't become the Lord of Space and Time, it would be good to let Sarah, the reincarnation of Andriel, be the big leader and be the second person herself. But with Ruger's existence, she is afraid that she can barely be the 20th person, let alone the second person. Think about it, Ruger's family of 4, the 12 constellations have a total of 13 people, and this is 17. Would Sarah's original rogue deputies have a lower status than Gialia? Definitely not. After all the calculations, the little lowly felt that her importance ranking was likely to be outside the 30th, how could she be happy? So after coming out, while the others were still shocked by the surrounding environment that seemed to have been dug up by a planet-level giant, the little girl couldn't wait to set up a long-distance communication formation. As the little girl used the dead soul energy to ignite the ghost fires on the top of the white bone formation one by one, the originally sunny sky also became dim. In the ethereal clouds, a few light spots flashed faintly. Its orientation structure is exactly the same as the ghost fire lit on the little girl's white bone formation. This immediately aroused Ruger's interest. After all, this lost planet looks like the Earth of another world no matter how you look at it. And the ghost fires lit by the little girl, although different from the constellations on the Earth, are faintly like the recombination of several adjacent constellations at special positions and angles. It's like a combination of a foot of Gemini, a horn of Taurus, and the forearm of Orion. Could it be that Lasma is hiding in that star field now? He wanted to go over and talk to this ancient Nephilim, but before he got close, he saw all the ghost lights on the little lowly's bone formation go out at once, like birthday candles being blown out. But the little lowly Gialia, with her mouth pouted high, stood up from the ground mumbling and cursing, and kicked the bone formation into pieces in 2 or 3 moves. Turning around and seeing Ruger staring at her in amazement, the little girl hurriedly adjusted her gothic Lolita-style dress. Pretending to be innocent and blinking her big eyes at Ruger, she ran back to her Enoch. What happened? What did your father say? Ruger asked unwillingly. The little girl sighed helplessly and said to Ruger, Dad said that you are an interesting person and asked me to continue to follow you. I don't know what the old guy is thinking. He never says what he wants and always cheats us who work. Hey, is it inevitable that he will be a dull boy if he has an unhappy childhood? I don't know how his grandparents raised him. Hey. Look at the old grandfather, Grandma probably wasn't happy when she was a child. Everyone was speechless. Others didn't know what to say. They knew very little about these secrets. Rugshia, who could understand these messy family ethics dramas, didn't know how to respond. Should I tell Gialia that your so-called old grandfather, Mephisto, bullied your grandfather a lot in the past? It is said that your grandfather is still being tortured day and night in that guy's hell cage. It is said that your grandmother Lilith was exiled by your grandfather himself. The 2 demon angels fought like a piece of cake shortly after your father was born. So your father's childhood was destined to be isolated from words like happiness and joy. After thinking about it, Ruger just said to Gialia, then, "You are welcome to stay in the team for a long time," and turned back to his car. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 484. Lugger originally wanted to chat with that Razmita, but looking at Jalia's behavior, it seemed that that person didn't want to talk to him yet. In this case, Lugger would not lower his status and insist on chatting with him. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. What's more, there is actually a lot of key information in Kalia's seemingly venting words. For example, Razma's personality should be eccentric and gloomy, and difficult to communicate with. So Kalia would also express dissatisfaction with his unclear words. But his temperament shouldn't be too bad. Otherwise, even if Kalia is dissatisfied, she would not dare to show it casually. As a result, the image of an old father who was dull but cared for his children in his own way was sketched in Lugger's mind. Looking at himself from the perspective of such a man, Lugger seemed to be able to vaguely understand the reason why he was not in a hurry to communicate with him face to face. Because uncertain, not new, remains to be seen. Oh, okay. Lugger nodded silently. I think this is called the legendary love to ignore, right? Or is it a warning to competitors? No matter which one, Ruger's impression of this ancient Nephilim was reduced by one. When everyone had seen enough of the outside world, which seemed to have been plowed away by giants, Ruger's African fox was the first to lead the team on the road, driven by Anya. Target, East. According to the information gathered by Ruger, this area should be at the junction of the zoo's home and the home of his southwest neighbor and cousin. Continue walking due east and you should soon be able to see a mountain range to the south. There should be the famous Alps. The reason why I say it should be is because Lugger is not sure whether this is definitely the place he guessed. In fact, after walking eastward for a long time, we passed the boundary of the original misty forest and entered the real surface of the lost planet. There were still no so-called mountains in sight to the south. However, this does not prove that Ruger was wrong. Because after leaving the misty forest, the surrounding trees are still dense. It's just that the color tone has changed from gray and dark to brighter and greener. In fact, except for the fact that no one was sure that the 3 Seraph legions that had gone straight here were no longer outside, nothing else could be determined for the time being. And even this certainty needs to be discounted. Because, from time to time, there will be a few meteors flashing in the sky. It was obviously daytime, but the light of those shooting stars was still clear. They are not meteors at all, but patrol sentries of the Angel Legion. Judging from the density of these guys' presence, this patrol seems to have become routine. Probably because of this, their search intensity was not very high, and they did not find the Ruger convoy in the jungle on the ground at all. Of course, perhaps for the commander of the Angel Legion, he never thought that Ruger would lead a small team out alone. Or, those patrol sentries are just like unmanned reconnaissance aircraft or even reconnaissance satellites, only passing by, only recording, but not taking action. Ruger was indifferent to this. After all, when he took the sanctuary world back into the logistics space system, it wasn't because he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to defeat those Angel Legions. Mephisto has already been defeated, why should he be afraid of Angel cannon fodder? The reason why he did that was just as Sarah said, he didn't want other people in Rogtown or Charming Dungeon to get hurt. Now that they are all doing whatever they need to do in the logistics space, Lugger is not afraid of the Angel Legion suddenly leaving. When the time comes, Tia transforms into the Diabolo Red Dragon, and Luge rides on the Andariel Mecha Warrior. There are only 3 Angel Legions. Even if the 3 Archangels lead the team together, the 2 of them can still compete. In this way, Lugger didn't bother to deliberately avoid it, and just continued walking eastward in a dignified manner. As a result, no angel came out to intercept him along the way. However, it is not without enemies. In fact, As soon as you leave the original misty forest area and enter the bright green forest area, various monsters start to come out and kill people from time to time. Oh, give me the animal head. The shapes of these monsters are not too complicated. They are lynxes, wild wolves, leopards, and black bears that were originally common in the mountain forests. However, not only do their physical indicators far exceed those of the original version, but their body shape has also been greatly improved. Bobcats are like tigers, and wild wolves are like brown bears. When it comes to leopards and black bears, the former is bigger than a hippopotamus, and the latter is as big as an elephant. There are still sharp claws, teeth, hair, etc. The details are quite different from the original version. Normal animals hunt in order to eat, and eat in order to survive, so their claws and teeth are sufficient, and their hair is mainly a protective color that adapts to the surrounding environment. But these monsters seem to attack just for fun, or perhaps attacking is the value of their existence. Therefore, the claws and teeth are inexplicably strengthened, sharp and thick, but are heavy and cumbersome for predatory actions, and are simply killing tools. As for the hair, it's as scary as it gets. For example, the leopard is also called a golden leopard in China. As the name suggests, the pattern on its fur is very similar to Chinese coins. But here, the pattern on the hippopotamus-sized leopard with giant teeth and sharp claws changed from money to weird skull-like things. There is no doubt that these things are definitely biochemically modified beasts. Judging from the underlying technology, it should be very similar to the insect-type charm that Ruger has already acquired. But when it comes to the final form and fighting methods, the difference is extremely obvious. It feels like the same iron ingot is extracted from the same ore and made into steel, but some people make it into a ring-headed dragon bird, while others make it into a full moon scimitar. While fighting these monsters, Luger finally saw the mountains on the south side. This is indeed the north side of the Alps. Then, as long as you continue eastward, pass through Austria-Hungary, turn southeast along the southern side of the Carpathian Mountains between Poland and Slovakia, and enter the Black Sea along the Danube River, you will reach Odessa Oblast in Ruthenia. From there, continue eastward along the northern shore of the Black Sea, passing through the Caucasus, the Caspian Sea, and Central Asia, and then you can enter the western China region. Just go home and have a look. This is the first goal Ruger set for himself on this trip. Go home and see. However, given that in general apocalyptic worlds, China often does not exist, or deliberately ignores China's existence, it is hard to say what it will look like now. However, as long as there is no Chinese power there, Luge does not want to leave that land to anyone. Even if this world of the Lost is just an alien version of Earth. I won't give up even an inch of my homeland. However, just by looking at this list of familiar and unfamiliar place names, you can tell that it may take a month or two at the fastest to get there. Of course, if you switch to flying, the speed will be much faster. So in addition to the long-term goal, Ruger also has a short-term goal, to find a place like an airport or Air Force base to recycle aircraft, preferably military fighter jets, and give himself another way of transportation. Then his short-term goal is ready to come out. Infinite Doomsday start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 485. Luger's current location is probably southwest of the zoo's home, close to the border of a neutral country. The nearest big city with a zoo is probably Munich. This location seemed to perfectly avoid zoo country's own air force, as well as the beautiful country's air force base installed in the defeated zoo country. The most likely aerial vehicles are probably the various small private planes renting the airport apron at Munich airport. If I'm lucky enough to find a small business jet, the second half of the journey seems to be easy. It's just a pity that it is not a combat vehicle. Diversion to the zoo's air force bases. The distance on the road is too long. Fortunately, if you continue to the east, you can leave the zoo country and go to his cousin's house in the southeast. At least half of the Austrian Air Force bases are on the route booked by Ruger. After all, most of the country is on the same route. The plan was good, but Luger didn't expect that the change would come so suddenly. A total of 3 machine gunners, Seongdakshin Er and Li Ji, had just killed more than 10 huge beasts rushing from the mountains on the south side. Everyone heard a dense shout of "Oh ha ha" coming from there. The 3 of them are addicted to bullying monsters. When they heard this sound, their first reaction was to replace the general-purpose machine gun on the top of the Inuk with a heavy machine gun and massacre them. As a result, he was naturally stopped by Luger. Because he had already seen the appearance of the coming person from the African fox's optical reconnaissance mirror. It turned out to be a group of primitive people dressed as beings with obvious beastly features. They could be called half-orcs. The appearance of these orcs immediately reminded Luger of the orcs that were used by the electronic life form E-52 as elite soldiers in the arsenal camp of the Charming Dungeon. It's just that those half-orcs have too low IQs and can use the weapons of the Lost but are not proficient in them. As a result, Luger took advantage of the gap and was easily bullied to death. After that, on the one hand, it was out of ethics, and on the other hand, it was also out of disapproval of the combat power of these orcs, so even if Luger completely controlled the charm, he had no intention of creating such an existence. Now that he saw something of this form in the outside world, he naturally wanted to take a look. The world of the Lost was apparently destroyed by Shimizu and Noah, the rebellious artificial intelligence behind Shimizu. So in theory, as long as the technology used by Shimei is possible, it should be possible to see it on the lost planet outside the fragments of the sanctuary world. So he wasn't surprised to see these orcs here. But what surprised him was that the orcs who were shouting and rushing towards the convoy actually changed their previous attack direction when they saw the convoy, and knelt down in front of the convoy. He said, "The hero finally appears again." Although the grammar is a bit awkward and the accent is very strange, Luger can understand the language used by these orcs, which is the Zhou dialect most commonly used in this area. The imagined battle did not come, and the orcs who rushed over regarded Luger and his party as the legendary heroes who saved the village. Even Seongdakshin Er, who wanted to continue to do the most, was too embarrassed to continue to pull the trigger. Luge was about to chat with the orcs when he heard one of them exclaim again, "Be careful! The world-destroying beast, the world-destroying beast is here again." The world-destroying beast? Luge was very surprised. Could it be that the evil spirits from the outside world have formed a new civilization and are still attacking each other? Can these half-orcs be considered lost humans? As he was really thinking about this, he saw the sound of charging beasts coming from the dense forest on the east side. Listening to the sound, it was no less noisy than when the orcs ran out before. In fact, it is even several times larger. Soon, Luger saw a monster rushing out of the dense forest. Those monsters were all mechanical structures, and some looked like theropod dinosaurs, and some simply looked like cheetahs and orangutans in the forest. What's going on? Could it be that there is really a conflict between the charming mechanical faction and the biochemical faction? Mechanical technology and biochemical technology are two directions that are relatively independent but integrated with each other. Purely the former, Ruger had only heard of it when Sarah relayed what Max had seen. The evil spirits in Rogue City are all based on biochemical technology without exception. Even those succubus-turned cougar tanks and that cyber dragon. The majority of them are mechanical devices, but the most critical core is biological organisms. This is an environmental issue. Because the magic radiation in Rogue City will quickly destroy purely mechanical electronic chips. Now, a group of mechanical monsters suddenly rushed out of the dense forest. It looked like they were heading towards the orcs. Although Luge wanted to see their combat effectiveness, after thinking about it, he decided to save the orcs who could communicate first. Then, summons Giant Andarial. Magic radiation, spread. Countdown, 3, 2, 1. Dozens of huge and muscular legions of mechanical monsters, each of which looked at least like a World War II medium tank, simply fell to the ground one by one. Couldn't get up anymore. God, God. It's the God of heaven who has descended to earth. Family members, come out quickly to worship the God. Giant Andariel is also a hell demon. After being transformed by Lugger, he could barely be called a demon god. In addition, there was Tia, a real demon god, who was called a god by mere orcs in the team, and Lugger didn't feel embarrassed at all. In his words, "This is the truth." Under the threat of the gods, Lugger quickly figured out the origins of these orcs and the mechanical monsters that the orcs called world-destroying beasts. It turns out that these half-orcs are really not free biochemical weapons from a mysterious army that takes the biochemical route. On the contrary, they are a group of lost humans. Because they really can't survive, they have to use all the available technologies at hand to strengthen themselves into orcs. The huge beasts that were slaughtered by the three little beasts before were also war beasts raised by these survivors of the lost who followed the primitive beast style. That's why their appearance is so strange and unnatural. The main reason why they need to strengthen their teeth and claws is to fight these mechanical behemoths. According to the Orc Elder's explanation, most of the flat terrain nearby has been occupied by those mechanical behemoths. The orcs retreated while fighting, and had no choice but to retreat into the mountains. They relied on the complex terrain to lay traps and so on, and then managed to stabilize their front. And war beasts were deployed on the periphery to guard. Today, too many behemoths were found dead. They thought the mechanical behemoths were launching a massive attack, so they rushed down from the mountain one by one to fight for their lives. It turned out that it was actually the three children in the Ruger team who were hunting and practicing their marksmanship. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 486. After all, only 50 years have passed since the destruction of the Lost World. Google search reading. Although the orcs had to transform themselves into beast-like mimicry, the older elders still remembered the original human form of the Lost. In addition, Mr. Max had passed by here before, and they recognized the chariot, so they shouted hero to Lugger and others. The situation on the orc side was roughly the same. It was just that the oldest elder was actually only in his early 30s. A lot of knowledge was passed down from the original elders, and it was difficult to delve into the details. For example, why did they choose the overly abnormal path of beast transformation and strengthening instead of other methods? Lugger didn't want to delve into this. After all, it was the end of the world, and it was normal to use whatever was available. If they could continue to live and reproduce, even if all living parts except the reproductive organs were replaced with machines, they could still do it. So naturally, Lugger regarded those mechanical beasts as this kind of thing. But soon the orc elder shook his head and said that those mechanical beasts had nothing to do with humans and were born to destroy humans. They were real beasts whose only purpose was to destroy the world. That's why they were called world-destroying beasts. Ruger was quite non-committal at first. Only when he dismantled the remains of dozens of mechanical beasts inside and out and restored their design drawings, he had to nod and agree with the orc elder's statement. Although these mechanical beasts were not perfect in structure, they had simulated wild beasts in nature to the greatest extent. They simulated their predation, their actions, and their self-repair. In addition to their reproductive ability, they continued to have all the abilities of wild beasts in nature. Their energy source is mainly solar energy, but they can use the chemical energy of food obtained from eating as a catalyst or enhancer to greatly improve energy utilization and maintain their ability to move at night and under cloudy days. In this way, they can become all-weather killing machines. However, their core chips were destroyed by the magic radiation spread by the giant Andariel, and Ruger could not determine that the command in their chips was as simple as searching and killing human survivors. However, according to the Orc elders, the more eastward you go, the more mechanical behemoths you will encounter. Ruger has plenty of opportunities to study. Especially since he already has the complete design drawings of these mechanical behemoths, and the mechanical bodies that are almost undamaged except for the chips, he now has no idea how many ways to hunt these guys. For example, create your own mechanical behemoth that obeys your orders. Or simply build yourself a mechanical behemoth-style outer armor. After driving a mobile suit, it shouldn't be difficult to drive a mechanical Tyrannosaurus. At that time, whether it is to confront the mechanical behemoths head-on or simply sneak into their team to find their nest, it's up to Ruger. This is almost a done deal, so there is no need to rush now. On the contrary, there are some things on the Orc side that Ruger is very interested in. First, it is the technical equipment they use to strengthen their offspring in animal form. Ruger guessed that this thing should be similar to the insect-type strange equipment in his hand. But some details should be different. It's just right to learn from it. Second, the Orc elder said that their village has some information left by the hero who passed by decades ago. The hero said that these things are for people who will pass by here in the future. Instruct the Orc village to preserve them well. Ruger felt that this was probably a backup plan arranged by his cheap father-in-law. It is information left for Tia and Andariel. Since such a thing exists, Ruger must go and see it. Although the Orcs have been transformed into beasts, their hands are still dexterous. Even if they dig out a home for themselves in the rugged valley, they still maintain human hobbies, which are spacious, warm, dry and comfortable. Generally speaking, it is very similar to the Chinese cave dwellings that Ruger is familiar with. Although the geological conditions are completely different, the methods used to dig holes are also completely different. The valley cave of the Orcs is very much like a paradise. In addition to daily household furnishings and daily necessities, there are also remnants of the lost people's technological creations. For example, various gunpowder guns and weapons. For example, a tablet with a solar charger. The so-called hero's information to the later ones is in this tablet called God's Handwriting by the Orcs. The content is indeed the video data left by Mr. Max and Leah. The first sentence of the opening is to let the later ones who are lucky enough to come here if they meet people looking for the couple. Then, it is the information about the surrounding monsters, animals, and plants, and water sources and mineral veins collected by the couple decades ago. It seems that it is just to give some experience guidance to other adventurers who strayed into this place. But Ruger is sure that what they left behind is far more than that. Then, he told the Orc elders directly that he and others were here to find these two heroes. So, it turns out that the Lord God is here to find heroes. I'm sorry. The Orc elder knelt down deeply again, turned around and took out a square box and handed it to Ruger. This is the handwritten letter from the gods that the hero ordered, which can only be given to the heroes who are looking for them. This handwritten letter cannot be viewed by anyone other than the selected. Can't view it? Opening the device casually, Ruger nodded at the login page where he had to enter the user password, thinking. Only the selected can view it? The selected ones, what the heck? Isn't it just a power-on password? Let me go around. Go around. Okay, my father-in-law is pretty good, he actually set a hardware password. Can't get around it? Alas, if the old chatterbox is still here, let him get in directly, and any password will be useless. Well, wait, the so-called shadow creature of the old chatterbox is not actually an electronic life form like the real ghost, but a phantom of the demon god. In this case, as long as Tia separates the demon god's consciousness, the so-called soul out of the body, wouldn't it be able to achieve the same effect? If you want to do it, just do it. Ruger quickly pulled Tia behind him and asked her to try it. However, Tia took the tablet and had no intention of leaving her soul. She just clicked a few times on the password input interface, and a message appeared. Surprisingly, it was a password prompt message. The prompt was also very simple, asking for the nickname of their daughter. This. Ask Tia a question. The content of the question is, what is Tia's nickname? What is this? Is it a free point question? Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 487. However, what is Tia's nickname? Ruger couldn't help but be curious. Google search reading. It seems that when Tia was in the sea of consciousness, there was no information about this in her memory of her infancy. What is it? Curious, Ruger couldn't help but slowly approached. Then, he saw Tia blushing and moving to the side with the tablet. Tisk, are you still shy? Not allowed to see? Ruger thought, they are already an old couple, what is not allowed to see? Well, let's ask Sarah to help ask later. Ruger secretly thought about something, while Tia had already found the information left by her parents in this encrypted tablet. After all, she now has absorbed all the memories of Old Noisy, not to mention the memories that Mr. Max deliberately left to seal in Old Noisy's consciousness. This means that Tia now knows all the electronic equipment usage skills that Ruger taught Old Noisy. Since the password verification left by Max was passed, the encrypted message here directly called out Tia at the beginning. It was Tia's nickname. Hi, little greedy cat, you finally grew up. Little greedy cat? Ruger thought that Max and his wife would give Tia some nicknames such as Little Bomb, Little Pepper, etc., which are more suitable for her temperament and more domineering. Unexpectedly, it was this. Little greedy cat? Well, in the eyes of every parent, their children are not innocent, cute, and harmless. But they just like to eat a little. At most, they are just little greedy cats. Thinking about it, Ruger seemed to understand the couple's thoughts. While he was thinking about something, Tia also read the information left by her parents. In general, the main thing is to explain to Tia why they left. It was almost the same as what Sarah said before. Tia's mother Leah was originally the reincarnation container designated by Diablo. But Max kicked Diablo back. At the same time, they also gave birth to a daughter named Tia, and Diablo, who wanted to reincarnate, took advantage of the situation and transferred his demon god origin seeds to Tia. But that's not all. As Mephisto said before, as the hateful demon god, he has divided countless demon god origin seeds. As long as he wants, any seed that meets the germination standard can become a container for the reincarnation of the hateful demon god. The same is true for Diablo, the fearful demon. Although he was forced by Max to transfer most of his origin to Tia, in fact, Tia's mother Leah still has his seeds. This leads to another thing, that is, if Tia and Leah live together for a long time, especially when Tia grows up and has a sound mind, they will still be together, which will become a double insurance for Diablo's reincarnation. In the end, Max, who suppressed Diablo's resurrection, will be unable to take care of both sides and be exhausted, allowing Diablo to seize the opportunity to reincarnate successfully. In order to solve this problem, the only choice is to separate the mother and daughter. Compared with Tia, who is fearless, Max chooses to stay with Leah, who is relatively more fragile. In fact, his explanation is unnecessary. After all, there are not many people in the world who cannot understand a husband choosing to be with his wife instead of his daughter. It's not that his wife died, ran away, or eloped. Or the wife is a fairy returning to heaven, and the husband is an ordinary person who continues to grow his own land. In fact, seeing that her parents have such a good relationship and are unwilling to separate in this situation, although Tia is a little jealous, she is more happy and relieved. People often say that if you want your children to feel the warmth of the family and the preciousness of the family, the first thing to do is to love her mother-father. Only when the parents have a harmonious relationship, the child will feel that the family is warm and safe. So, apart from pouting her lips and complaining about her parents being shameless, Tia did not look lost or sad at all, but exuded a halo of happiness. Of course, this is also related to another thing. Max took Leah away from Rogue Town and returned to the Lost Planet, firstly to reduce the possibility of Diablo's resurrection, and secondly to continue to find a way to eliminate the rebellious Ainoa, the source of the destruction of the Lost World. This was Max's original intention to enter Rogue Town. Let's not talk about the latter part for now. The problem of the former part has been solved forever by Tia, with the help of Ruger. Diablo was resurrected, but his origin was completely transformed into Tia's consciousness, or in other words, his origin has been completely integrated with Tia's consciousness. From then on, no matter how Diablo transformed or resurrected, it would only be Tia who was resurrected. And this was done by Tia with the help of Ruger. In a sense, the two of them were more successful than Max and his wife. How could she not be radiant with pride? Then let's talk about the latter part. The way to eliminate the rebellious Ainoa. Judging from the situation of the target orc village, more than 10 years have passed, and Max and his wife should not have succeeded. Otherwise, those mechanical beasts would not have been staring at the orcs. And the reason was actually in the tablet. In fact, not long after leaving Rogue Town, Max and his wife changed their target. Because the fragment of the World Stone in Max's hand had mutated. To be precise, it turned into a strange Rubik's Cube that flashed brilliantly. In the video, Max showed it to Tia. Its appearance is like a small Horadric cube that can be tightly grasped in one hand. But the cube is not solid but hollow, with a colorful ball of light in the center. Space-Time Hub Singularity Gem. As soon as she saw it, Giulia called out the name. Her father Lasma also had one. With it, you can choose a piece of void unowned land as your base world. Max initially wanted to use this thing to collect the fragments of the sanctuary world in the Misty Forest, but he couldn't succeed anyway. However, he had no problem choosing other plots around. Only then did he believe that his and Sarah's speculation was wrong. The fragment of the World Stone in his hand was not the one that controlled the Sanctuary World fragment in the rogue camp. They were two pieces. At most, it can be said that they were two pieces with a special relationship. When Max collected a piece of land around him as the land in his Singularity Gem, he received a call from another world. The call of the Space-Time Hub. After thinking about it, he decided to go there first to accumulate strength, so he left this information in the nearby orc village. After reading all the information, Ruger nodded in his heart, thinking that his cheap father-in-law had said for several hours, but in fact, it could be summarized in just a few sentences. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 488. Mr. Max's message for several hours can be summarized in just a few sentences. First sentence, Tia, Mom and Dad love you. Second sentence, don't look for us in this world, we are not here. Third sentence, protect yourself, stay as long as you can, and wait for us to come back. Okay, more than 10 years have passed, and it seems that the couple should not have come back. If they come back, they should return to this orc village as soon as possible to update the information they left. The summoning of the time and space hub, others don't know about this kind of thing, how can Ruger not know it? Especially, he had found out some corners from Mephisto before. Needless to say, that is the main line of the Storm Heroes Brawl, the Time and Space War. However, Max was summoned as a Time and Space Lord. Maybe their version of the Time and Space War is more like the Heroes of Might and Magic compared to the 3C where three armies rushed against each other. If that's the case, the two should be able to get a lot of good things. It's just that why they haven't come back yet, that's hard to say. Maybe they are too happy to leave, or maybe there is no sun and moon in the mountains. But one thing is certain, they are not dead. Now Tia is Diavolo, the resurrected demon of fear. Tia can also feel the seeds of fear that Diablo spread back then. Although she has not returned to hell yet, has not sat on her throne in the burning hell, and cannot spread her consciousness to the entire universe, she can still feel it if it is just basic induction. Leah is not dead, and Max is still alive and by her side. Tia just can't contact her. But then again, even if she returns to hell and sits on the throne, and receives all the power of Diablo, she will probably still not be able to talk to Leah directly. After all, the restrictions set by Max can force Diablo into a corner, and it is likely to be effective for Diavolo. Brother Lou, what should we do next? After reading the messages from her parents, Tia also felt that the amount of information was too much and she couldn't make sense of it, so she could only release the ultimate move. Ask Lugger. I originally wanted to find them and tell them that they don't have to hide anymore. Diablo's problem has been solved. Who knew that the old couple said they came out to treat the disease, but turned around and ran out to travel by themselves. It's not enough to travel across countries, but they also travel across dimensions. Really, they don't pay attention to cherishing their daughter's feelings at all. Now, we can't find them anymore, right? Brother Lou, what should we do next? What should we do? Well, Luigi thought for a while, but turned to look at Giulia and said, speaking of which, why didn't your father Lasma go to participate in the time and space war? How do I know about your time and space lords? Giulia looked puzzled. Didn't you receive an invitation? No way. Your singularity gems have all taken in a piece of land and have officially become a time and space lord. You didn't receive an invitation. Could it be that the land is special and was excluded? After a few words, Giulia fell into deep thought. Hey, don't just keep silent after a few words. At least, tell us everything you know, Tia asked hurriedly. Humph, when Giulia heard that it was Tia who was asking her, she immediately snorted and turned her head away, indicating that she disdained to associate with the devil of hell. But soon, she looked at Ruger and said, I don't know much, Big Head just said it. No matter who gets the singularity gem, they can gain its power. After that, you can use it to collect a piece of land as your own space-time base. At this time, the holder can be called the Lord of Space-Time, and can also receive the call of the space-time hub to participate in the space-time war. The holder can also completely refuse the call. From what my father said, if you respond to the call, although there are many benefits, it will delay things. But if you choose not to respond to the call, unless you receive another invitation, you will not be able to participate in the war before the end of this space-time war. Oh, by the way, singularity gems are not necessarily fragments of world stones, but now, it seems that all world stone fragments may have become singularity gems. Julia's explanation did not surprise Ruger. After all, the little loli had already said this information roughly when she muttered to herself before. As for what the little girl was most puzzled about, why Ruger got the singularity gem and took over Rogue City, but had not received an invitation from the space-time hub, Ruger himself knew it very well. Because he relied on the system, not the world stone fragments, let alone the singularity gems. However, the three seemed to be able to transform from top to bottom under certain conditions. The system can simulate the function of the world stone fragments, and the world stone fragments can also be transformed into singularity gems. But the other way around, it seems not so easy. Not to mention other singularity gems transformed into world stone fragments. From the experience of Max and his wife, even the singularity gems transformed from the world stone fragments themselves cannot be transformed back. As for turning the world stone fragments into a system, that is even more difficult. Giulia's last sentence, which seemed a bit inexplicable, actually confirmed Ruger's guess. Then, can we join the space-time war and go find our parents? After listening and thinking for a moment, Tia turned to Ruger and asked. If we can get an invitation. Ruger nodded, But, I am more worried about another point. What? If we are invited to participate in that time and space war, what if we become hostile to Mr. Max and others? Hestia took a breath. It's possible, so forget it. Otherwise, we will wait for them here? By the way, help them deal with the rebellious Ainoa. Okay, Ruger nodded. That was one of our goals. Okay, let's do it first. The goal is to rebel against Ainoa, but a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The first goal after leaving the Orc village is the mechanical behemoth factory on the eastern plains. This time, Ruger did not directly move out the giant Andariel, but transferred a newly formed heavy synthetic brigade from Rogue City to push forward. The newly formed heavy synthetic brigade of Rogue City is mainly composed of human armored vehicles and ghostly armed vehicles, supplemented by Nephilim, hell monsters, and natural servants. The overall structure is similar to that of the Chinese military after the reform, but the firepower output has been strengthened, and the main combat force tends to be heavy armored units. The combined brigade directly controls 4 combined battalions, 2 artillery battalions, 1 air defense battalion and 1 reconnaissance battalion. Each combined battalion has 3 armored companies and 1 armored infantry company. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 489. The main armored unit is the horse-bear tank with the increasingly mature number 4 tank chassis in Lugger's hands. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. After replacing the 105mm gun, the comprehensive combat capability of this thing can compete with modern light tanks. The reason why heavy tanks with thicker armor are not used is mainly because the enemy has not shown much armor-piercing ability. The main function of the tanks in Lugger's hands is to charge and output, rather than to withstand injuries. Moreover, these tanks have undergone ghost biochemical transformation, and ordinary vehicles only need 1 human as the commander to command. In fact, an armored company has 3 platoons, 4 tanks in each platoon, plus 2 tanks in the company headquarters, a total of 14 tanks. But only the 2 tanks in the company headquarters and the platoon leader's tanks have human drivers, that is, only 5 tanks are commanded by humans, and the remaining 9 tanks are purely ghosts operating mechanical bodies and obeying the command of the platoon leader. 12 armored companies of 4 combined battalions, plus 8 battalion tanks, actually only have 68 humans, but 176 tanks. In this way, Ruger can train enough armored soldiers in a short time. In fact, Ruger's original human guards in the second shelter, plus Sarah's main force of rogue, have almost consumed them. After all, the former only have a dozen people, and the latter, although there are many, the total number is less than 100. Counting those who have learned to operate tanks, they can only be cut in half. 10 plus 40 plus, a total of less than 60 people, there are still many gaps. Fortunately, the intensive training in the past few days is barely enough. The rest is to replace training with fighting. The main armored force is nearly 200 modified Type 4 tanks, and the armored infantry company mainly plays an auxiliary role. The 4 infantry companies, the vehicle is the new Boxer infantry fighting vehicle with wheels replaced by tracks, and the main weapon is still the 30mm rapid-fire machine gun. The crew members are completely ghostly, and as for the infantry, they are Gog, dwarves, tree elves, and some Nephilim who have a special liking for single-soldier combat. Each infantry company still has 14 infantry fighting vehicles, a total of 56 vehicles. The 2 artillery battalions are traditionally organized in threes, with 3 companies in 1 battalion, 3 platoons in 1 company, and 3 vehicles in 1 platoon. In addition to the 4 vehicles in the battalion headquarters and 12 vehicles in the company headquarters, there are a total of 70 self-propelled artillery. At present, they are also the chassis of the Type 4 tank, plus a 120 mm rapid-fire mortar howitzer. Similarly, except for the 16 vehicles in the battalion headquarters and the company headquarters that are commanded by personnel, the remaining 54 vehicles are operated by ghostly biochemical beasts. The anti-aircraft battalion also has a similar structure. The only difference is that the vehicle is a self-propelled anti-aircraft artillery vehicle equipped with a twin 30 mm anti-aircraft machine gun. The reconnaissance battalion is a gathering place for all kinds of strange people. For example, the fire-type Iron Man, who had to show off, and their Rommel Chimera were incorporated into the reconnaissance battalion and became an independent company. For another example, the natural servants, the Silver Pegasus Elf Knights, who were eager to show off to the new gods, also had a company. There were also the Hellhound Company, the Nightmare Beast Company, the Fire Monster Company, and so on. In short, other battalions had at most 4 companies, but this reconnaissance battalion had 8 companies. Fortunately, except for the African Fox Reconnaissance Vehicle Company composed of 2 rogue scouts, the rest of the monsters were not really used as scouts by Rogue. It was a special operations unit in the literal sense. Because as long as Rogue was there, all units could return to Rogue City for repairs at any time, so there were very few logistics units in the entire Heavy Synthetic Brigade. As for special operations such as repairing bridges and roads, they were left to the reconnaissance battalion and those strange guys on the infantry fighting vehicles. In total, there are nearly 200 light tanks, 56 infantry fighting vehicles, 70 self-propelled artillery, 35 anti-aircraft machine guns, and several fantasy creatures. Apart from other things, the firepower is definitely enough. In fact, the Heavy Synthetic Brigade's battle against the mechanical behemoths is not to say that it is crushing, but it is also a leap forward. The mechanical behemoths, who are used to bullying the primitive level lost human survivors, have never seen the power of the armored torrent. Not to mention that the magic-modified war vehicles such as Ruger are controlled by strange biochemical technology and attacked by high-powered magic ammunition. This is not a war at all, it is a massacre, naked, unilateral massacre against mechanical behemoths. Facing enemies like mechanical behemoths, the first weapon that the scientific and technological warriors think of is probably electromagnetic pulse weapons. However, electromagnetic pulses are not absolutely easy to use. At least, when facing these guys, it is impossible to think of firing a large electromagnetic pulse bomb and killing a large area at once. Because the metal shell of these mechanical behemoths is naturally a Faraday cage. The electromagnetic pulse generated outside cannot cause damage to the circuit inside the metal shell. For this reason, whether it is Luger's self-propelled artillery, tank guns, or those anti-aircraft machine guns, the ammunition used is neither high-explosive shells nor armor-piercing shells, but armor-piercing electromagnetic pulse shells with lightning magic gems added. As the name suggests, this thing is similar to armor-piercing incendiary shells or armor-piercing high-explosive shells, and the front part of the warhead is armor-piercing materials such as tungsten alloy. After breaking the enemy's outer armor, the part with lightning magic in the back half will take effect. Its electromagnetic pulse after effect can penetrate the metal shell Faraday cage and explode inside the mechanical behemoth. The effect is very obvious. After being hit by such shells, almost no mechanical behemoth can survive for 10 seconds. And from the remaining chips of these damaged mechanical behemoths, Ruger gradually collected intelligence on the whole mechanical behemoth side. Of course, there is not much useful information in these pure war machine chips, but some tactical experience can be used as a reference. It provides convenient conditions for Ruger to compile a set of mechanical AI tank troops in addition to the strange biochemical beasts in the future. And the most useful information in these chips is nothing more than the map of the surrounding mechanical behemoth manufacturing factories. Although the information left by Max and his wife also contains the relevant location information of these manufacturing factories, it is an old version from more than 10 years ago after all. In fact, After comparing the old and the new, Ruger can find that probably because the half-orc village has not been taken down for a long time, the number of mechanical behemoth manufacturing factories near this area is more than 3 times that of more than 10 years ago. And the fate of these manufacturing factories is also obvious: they will become the production and manufacturing factories of Ruger's combat vehicles. Ruger's current heavy synthetic brigade's combat vehicles are almost all purchased directly from the logistics space. Although after taking over Rogue City, the output of the entire area provided points, Ruger's points have directly broken through from 6 digits to 7 digits, and are steadily moving towards 8 digits. But now he needs to invest points in many places. He will not easily buy equipment with points directly. If he has the time, it is better to build a new manufacturing plant directly in Rogue City. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 490. The old workshops in the ghostly underground city have become factories for making the chassis of the Panzer IV tank. This is why more than half of the armored vehicles of Ruger's heavy composite brigade still use the chassis of the Panzer IV tank. However, relatively speaking, it is still a little difficult to get the manufacturing factories controlled by Ghostly and Rogue to produce key components such as the barrel and engine gearbox. The manufacturing process requirements they require are too high. For this part, Ruger can only command industrial robots to make it in the production workshop of the logistics space. Fortunately, with his current level of telekinesis, he can work 24 hours a day. However, with the equipment in these mechanical behemoth manufacturing factories, especially the production machinery inside, and their electronic data, Ruger's production efficiency will definitely increase exponentially. He can finally say goodbye to the chassis of the Panzer IV tank and replace the armored brigade with a chassis at least at the level of the Cold War era. For example, the Leopard 1 series. As for the Leopard 2, if the cost of the engine, gearbox, and the 3 cores of the barrel can be reduced, then it can also be considered to replace them directly. However, for now, Ruger has not found the possibility of producing Leopard 2 engines from the manufacturing plant of the mechanical behemoth. In the manufacturing plant, Ruger also found more information about the mechanical behemoth. This time, he finally confirmed that the source of the technology of these mechanical behemoths is the mechanical combat units under the rebellious AI Noah. But now, after 50 years of development, these technologies have been iterated to the 7th generation. However, starting from the 3rd generation, the purpose of updating these technologies is no longer to increase power, but to increase adaptability and repairability and reduce costs. This is quite unexpected for Ruger. After all, 50 years have passed, and the humans in the Lost World have been extinct, and the remaining survivors are each guarding their own small nests that are definitely not spacious, such as the previous orc village. But those who are left should be more difficult to deal with. But from the perspective of the technical iteration direction of the mechanical behemoth, the idea of the rebellious AI Noah is not to increase the attack once and for all, but to turn to a protracted war. I want to use the current advantages as a basis to wear away the last bit of fighting spirit of the surviving humans bit by bit. Or, the last possibility of survival. So, the mechanical behemoths began a new path of pursuing cost-effectiveness. To be honest, this path is not only good, but also quite brilliant in Luger's opinion. As long as nothing unexpected happens, at most in another 50 or 100 years, the humans on the lost planet will inevitably become extinct. And now these mechanical behemoths pursuing cost-effectiveness can transform themselves into new mechanical creatures on this planet. If they develop for a few hundred years, based on these mechanical creatures, at least a new world similar to the Transformers Cybertron planet can appear. That Noah can also win the final victory. If nothing unexpected happens. However, the problem is still the same. Luger's nickname is Accident, the enemy's accident. As a result, 2 weeks later, from the middle of the northern foothills of the Alps to the vast area along the Black Sea coast, the manufacturing factories of the mechanical behemoths were all uprooted. These hundreds of large-scale mechanical manufacturing factories, large and small, all became Luger's logistics units. During this period, a small and not small thing happened. After cleaning up these giant beast factories, Ruger took time to return to the orc village and wanted to transfer them to a better environment. As a result, he was rejected by the orcs. They insisted on waiting for the previous generation of heroes, Max and his wife, to come back. That was their agreement. Thinking of the couple, Ruger no longer insisted, but built a huge underground network for the orcs near the original village, and left them several sets of lost weapon technology for mechanical behemoths. With these technologies, they can survive even if they no longer undergo animal transformation. Their transformation is acquired rather than congenital, and can only be completed through a series of biochemical transformation operations after the child grows to 10 years old. With these targeted firearms, the extremely risky and troublesome transformation operations can be avoided. In less than 20 years, this orc village can be restored to a human village. Of course, Ruger will come back to help when he is free. In addition to updating the video materials that he and Tia left here and sent to Max and his wife in return, he will also check their progress. This part of the human survivors stayed where they were, but other survivors were not so persistent. Ruger's journey from the Alps to the Black Sea coast is neither long nor short. Generally speaking, it is about the distance from Shanhaiguan, China, all the way south to the southernmost tip of the second largest island. The total distance is about 3,000 kilometers. In such a large area, there are actually quite a few surviving lost ones. But when all is added up, the total number does not exceed 1,000. It can be seen that the situation of the lost ones is bad. Moreover, among these people, there are almost no people over 30 years old, and the average age is only a pitiful 13 years old. Therefore, Ruger does not have to worry about how to deal with them, and each one is expanded into the population of Rogue City. Although they are all lost ones, although theoretically the possibility of them awakening to Nephilim is almost zero. But now, Ruger has no requirements for more Nephilim. Instead, he needs ordinary humans who are proficient in Lost Ones technology. Of course, it is difficult for these survivors of the apocalypse to master the technology of the Lost Ones. But these humans have their own unique characteristics to survive the countless sieges of mechanical behemoths. A person with a tough character and a strong desire to survive is destined to have a good learning ability. After studying the Lost Ones civilization education outline compiled by Ruger, system, it is absolutely no problem for these people to at least expand to the armored brigade to serve as tank commanders or something. Of course, that will take at least half a year, and the longer the better. Ruger is not in a hurry. He now has the strength of a heavy brigade to continue to push the factory bases of those mechanical behemoths to the east, which is enough. Especially under the premise that the Iron Man took the initiative to act as a pioneer. Ruger does not have to worry about the problem that the armor of the modified light tank built on the chassis of the No. 4 tank is not thick enough. Rommel Chimera, the fire sign Iron Man, is really resistant. Luger really didn't expect that the so-called Chimera was actually a three-headed fusion monster of tiger, elephant, and rat. These three in the zoo are thicker and more excessive than each other. If there is any fatal weakness, it is that it has thick skin and strong artillery, but not fast enough.